When is the last time you listened to a podcast about web development, web design, and small business and didn't fall asleep? Yes, we cover web development, web design, and small business, but like actual human beings with personalities. If you're a beginner, we're not going to talk over your head. It's more like asking your buddy for help. We have guests, we have fun, and let me tell you, these two can get off on a tangent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HTML All the Things Podcast. This is Matt Lawrence and Mike Curran.
That's right, everybody. We are back. This is the HTML All Things Podcast. This episode is titled Why Developer Experience Matters. So in this episode, Mike and I are actually going to be sharing some personal stories on things about various developer experiences. He's going to ask some questions, but he's going to be talking about how to make your developer experience better, why developer experience will make you a better developer, and things along that line. And also, I guess, kind of a funny question he's going to ask is other ones, but it's like, is there anything extreme that we've ever done in order to make our developer experience better? So you can kind of think of this episode as kind of the developer UX episode, I guess you could say. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go and check us out on that Patreon, leave a review or rating on your podcast app, join us in our Discord server, or share this with your friends. And remember that you can get up to 20% off Scrimba if you want to learn on their interactive media player code editor, where you can pause whatever the instructor is doing, go ahead and break that code, play with it, be like, what the heck is going on here? And then you're just like, all right, I finally understand. Once I've broken it and played with it, you can then press play and the lesson will pick up right where it was. You can do that with our affiliate link, scrimba.com/links/HTML all the things. Full details on HTMLallthethings.com in this episode's show notes. And also, I'd like to give a small random endorsement. This is the second time I've ever had bubbly orange cream, and it's freaking awesome. I would like to say, if you're an orange creamsicle fan, then you're a fan. Mike's putting his head in his hand there, but I'm going to say this is freaking delicious. It must be said.
I fear for the amount of bubbly enthusiasts that might come after us after this.
What does that mean?
Not come after us in a bad way, but possibly in a really good way. The bubbly community is particularly interesting. So yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, probably a good thing.
Oh, the Reddit.
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay. I forgot all about that until you started talking there. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, go there at your own risk. So this, I think you described it really well. Developer UX. A lot of times we talk about developer UX as developer experience or DX. We've kind of come up with our own term because that's who we are as developers. We like to come up with silly names for things that already exist. And the reason that I want to talk about it is, first of all, the industry, the developer experience industry. So again, this is tooling, this is guides, this is anything that revolves around making a developer's life, which is probably someone listening to this podcast, easier. Not like making your app better, not really making your, code better to a certain degree. Actually, there's some developer experience that can definitely make your code better. But overall, it's really the outside the code stuff, the thing that helps you write code better, is $1 billion industry, and not billion anymore. It's probably billions, right? This was mostly led by companies like Vercel, Netlify, Cloudflare. All of those are $1 billion companies. I'm not actually sure if Netlify has gotten there yet, but I know for sure Vercel and Cloudflare are. The main things that they do is developer experience. Now, Cloudflare has a lot of networking involved in it too, but it has a ton of developer experience platforms in there as well, right? And Vercel, their whole thing is like, let's make developers' lives easier. Let's do developer experience as a service. And they made it to $1 billion company. So developer experience has become big, and it's becoming bigger in certain ways, smaller in other ways. And I'll talk about that as we go in the episode. But like, it is a very important part of every developer's life, even if we don't consciously think about experience, like how our experiences with our editor. A lot of times a developer would just accept their fate, as I like to call it, where like they just have a shitty experience. And they're like, well, there's no other way to do it. So I'll just stick to the shitty experience and I'll keep going. But what I want to point out in this episode is that regardless of what situation you're in, you can still make it better, right? Like, I know there's some people working on legacy projects that is just like, the pipeline is the pipeline. The editors are the editors. Like, everything is kind of set. This code is 10 years old. There's not much you can do. I get that, but I still think that there's certain processes that you can make better, and I think it's worthwhile. And that's the most important thing. I really do think it is worthwhile to spend time here. A lot of times, project managers, product owners will push back on things that are developer experience related. But another part of this episode is going to be giving you tools to fight back with that, right? Like why it's important for you to like, hey, can we spend a sprint to make our pipeline 10 minutes faster? Like it's 30 minutes right now. If we save 10 minutes, X and Y and Z, it'll increase our productivity, right? Like, so I think it is an important tool to understand and to know that you have in your toolbox. And when you make it better, it will make your life easier, right? Like developer experience is really at the cusp of it, the ease or difficulty in allowing a developer to focus on the code. And the more a developer focuses on code, the more they can output, because everything else outside the code, like building your tooling, working with your code editor, testing it on a device or something like that, hosting stuff, like everything outside of coding can be almost put away into the developer experience bucket.
Well, I actually
Right,
have
because
an example of this, so if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Like, this is back when I was in IT, so it's not exactly development related, but it's part of it. And part of it was we had a policy where if we had to store certain passwords or, secure notes or API keys or license keys, most likely because it was IT, we had to use this very old tool. And I actually think it may have even been like an internal tool, something that wasn't commercially available. And because of that, it was, very clunky. No one really liked to use it. It was very annoying to you boot it up, it like mounts the thing. It was a whole disaster. And I don't remember my exact involvement in it, but I was there. I remember I was part of the helping out do this, but we found out that we would still be corporate compliant if we actually put some of the key files of the program on a shared drive, got the program to mount that shared drive, and then we would all actually have everyone's passwords, because this again was like a team thing. It'd be like, hey, the whole team gets everybody on this team needs this license key. Everybody on this team needs this shared password to this router or to this, the switch, for networking, things like that. So stuff that's supposed to be shared. And so then it was okay, one person is going to, I added a new router to the infrastructure. The password is hello. I'll go into the router, or I'll go into this program, add it. Now everybody has that and everybody could see it. Oh, something got updated. That was the big thing, was there was an incident. Maybe the router got replaced. It's 4 a.m. So somebody doesn't remember the old password. So they just type in a new password and then they add it to their password manager, but then no one else got it. And then there was to be an incident in the next week, maybe on that router. And then it'd be, oh my God, I can't get into the router. I can't even see what's going on. I have to call the manufacturer, do a security jump or disaster. So just this one thing, it's hey, we have to use this older, I think it was again, likely proprietary program. We have to use this, but within our own policies, there's some wiggle room there. And it's okay, this allows us to sync everything together. Not all of us have to add it. And heck, I was a co-op, they could have tossed it to me and been co-op, add these 5 things, and then I just deal with this clunky program and then the whole team gets it. So that's just an example of something that stood out to me is it's even if it is that 10-year-old code base where you're stuck kind of doing certain things, not always, but generally there is some wiggle room there for you to do something. And that ended up being a huge UX fix really for the team.
Yeah. And honestly, you just mentioning that, what I'm working on right now for our team that I'm working with is very similar, because we have an issue where our environment secrets management, so our environment variable management, is kind of all over the place. So we have some stuff in 1Password, some stuff on Vercel, we just have it all over the friggin' place. So we don't know where all of the real secrets, again, similar to what you're saying, passwords and stuff like that, live. And I'm trying to tighten that up. And that's part of the developer experience for sure, because a new developer comes on the team and they're not able to get the right environment file. They're not going to be able to build the app. So now they're going to be fighting with the environment file. We're going to have to ask 15 people to get the right secrets. Sucks. Friction. You want to remove that kind of friction. And that's something that we're working on. And those kinds of things, as soon as you start to identify them in your processes, they're going to almost silently improve your productivity across the board. across for yourself, for your team, for whoever's working around that product. And you're going to start noticing those things in like how fast you can build products, how fast you can build features. It's kind of a crazy thing because as soon as you solve something, a lot of times it will just go on the back burner and be like, oh, that never existed. Like when you solve a developer experience issue, it just fades away. Whereas with other like features, you build a feature, it's kind of there and it's cool. Developer experience always stays on the back burner, and you can get into the cycle of like not even caring about it. And again, that is not a good way to handle it because everyone's just going to be miserable all the time, depending on what your pipeline is like and stuff like that. So really important to kind of tackle as you go with like a complex process. If you're just uploading a file to an FTP server, I want to be clear here, like you don't have to complicate it just by adding developer experience to it. You can upload that file to the FTP server and call it a day. That's fine. Simplicity is always king, in my opinion. But as soon as you need more and more and more as your team grows or you're working on more complex things, this starts to become a very serious topic.
Well, I was actually, I've thought about this a few times, and usually just in my life, like I'll have like, a life UX thing. Usually it's on my phone or something, where what I find is, you'll leave something kind of off to the side, like whether it's like, I don't know, you didn't clear out your to-dos or something silly, right? Just something kind of like day-to-day life, but it builds up. What I find is if you think about it critically, if this thing, whatever it is going to be a disaster in a panicked or rushed situation, then you should fix it. So uploading something to like an FTP server, if there's some sort of incident, war room, the whole 9 yards, I mean, you could just go into the FTP server and view the file. No one's panicking about that. But the whole like secret thing, like you were saying, API key, whatever the whole situation is, that would be a panic situation where it's like, I have 9 out of 10 things working. I need this thing. Who has it? Does Mike have it? Does Bill have it? Does this person have it? Does that person have it? Does Matt have it? Like, who has it? And everyone's running around. And it's like, that is something that, in my opinion, like should be fixed, because in a panic situation, it should be fixed. So in like real life, just a brief example is also, I like to try different apps to an extent. I mean, I kind of flip-flop between liking trying different apps and then also being an old man and not ever changing. So it's kind of weird, but sometimes I'll just like have a redundant app where prime example, where I was using Golf Canada to track all my golf stats, but then I was also using another one called the Grint because it's kind of like social media a little bit. And then Golf Canada kind of is too. But anyway, I was just like storing my rounds in each of them. And then one day I was just like, you know what? Why am I storing my rounds in both of these? And the Grint was gone. And nothing wrong with the Grint. It's just that I started my Golf Canada stuff first, so it had the most data. And so I just stuck with that. And so that's where I'm at, where it's just like I simplified that experience. Now, I don't know why you would ever be in a panic about tracking your golf stats. However, there have been times where like I'll like keep throwing, this is like backing up, where I keep throwing like scorecards on my desk or taking pictures of them. And then I'm like, oh my God, it says I've only played, 5 rounds. I've actually done 15 or something. So like I have to now backlog and go back. And it's not a huge like panic of a deal. Like it's just personal golf stats. But the point is like, that sucks. And I don't want to have to do that. But I do want a nice data set. So how do I get there? By keeping on top of it, very simple. Obviously, this is, again, just a life thing. But that principle can absolutely be applied to the workplace, as I've just shared.
Yeah, absolutely. It can. Again, simplifying a system, simplifying your life, having duplicate things that you're doing for the same thing. That's a very common thread inside of a developer workflow, right? A lot of times you'll have like, I got to update this and this and this, and then I can put everything together, where you could probably write a script that can do all that for you, or you can remove one of those pipelines, whatever. There's plenty of ways to optimize your process. Now, what I want to talk about now is why I think developer experience makes you a better developer. So the better the developer experience is, the higher chance you are going to be a better developer. That's what that is my thesis, right? And I want to kind of start off with a story, because the thing that set me off on this path long ago, this was probably like 7 or 8 years ago now, I can't exactly remember, is that at some point in my career, I was building Android applications, right? A lot of it was like a wrapper in web development, but I would still have to package them and put them on an Android device and so like whatever. And every time I had to do that to test that code, I would need to rebuild the application, have it download on the phone, open the app, and do whatever the sequence that I need to do. And that process to test any change, and again, I understand that now there's better ways to do this. This was a while ago, and I probably wasn't using the best pipeline at the time even, right? Like it was my first foray into Android applications. It was about a 5 to 10 minute process between saving my code and being able to test it. And so what that meant was that any feature I was building, any minute feature, would probably take me a couple hours to build, just from the sake of like, okay, I built it, now I need to tweak it. And that tweaking process was annoying. You have to be really good at like figuring out the code in one go, in one shot, and not having to really rely on the tweaking. And that, that was difficult, especially for a junior developer, which I was at the time, to do. So that really hindered my ability to really quickly learn and iterate on a process, on code. I would have to literally waste 5 to 10 minutes every time. Now, I found stuff to do in that 5 to 10 minutes, but you can't really do anything productive. Like sometimes you can answer an email, sometimes you can look at other features and stuff. You can do stuff, but it's really not a productive 5 to 10 minutes. You're just waiting there and looking at your phone for it to build. This is where, when I went back into web development, my eyes opened a lot, because I was like, holy shit, I can save my IDE and it'll appear on the browser in like seconds, right? Depending on the app, it could take a little bit longer, like especially back then. But regardless, it was like astronomically faster than the Android developer experience. And that's what I think led me down the path of always wanting to stay in web development, and why I think web development is so much more approachable than a lot of different verticals in programming, is because of the immediate interaction with the the code and the visual aspect. With most other things, what you're missing is a compile step. So like C#, you have to compile the code, wait for it to load and stuff like that. Again, I understand there's faster ways to do that now, but it's still probably not as fast as a web development build server on Vite. It's instantaneous in web. And so when you're building an application that needs to be used by everyone, right, the web platform just becomes more and more intuitive, because you're like, I can quickly iterate on this. I can quickly learn how to code, even like when you're first starting out, because I can type something, save it, see it immediately, type something else, save it, see it immediately. And you have that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You're able to code faster. You're able to figure out problems 10 times faster, literally 10 times faster sometimes, because you have that immediate interaction. And that's just one aspect. Like building code, the build times of the dev servers are just one aspect of developer experience. But even just improving that one aspect, I can see you, again, 5-10xing your way into whatever path in code that you have, if you can do that, right? Like if you could find an Android development path that makes it instantaneous, which I think those exist now. I believe like, with Android Studio and with Xcode, essentially when you save it automatically appears. That stuff exists. It's existed for a while too. And so like getting those things set up, those pipelines set up for you to be able to develop and see the progress instantaneously, I can guarantee you will have a significant impact on your ability to code.
Well, you mentioned it, and I was going to say that too, is that someone who's new to coding, like seeing something instantly show up in the browser, whether they use a dev server like Vite or whether they decide to not do that at all and they literally just do HTML and CSS and they just like have to click refresh, it's so instant that they're able to quickly like develop, troubleshoot, and there's previewing in between there where they develop, preview, troubleshoot. I mean, it's such a different experience, because think about like the world we live in, and if you have to wait 5 minutes, it's like 2 minutes, 1 minute even. It's like, well, my phone's here, I can open up TikTok. Now I'm derailed. Like now I'm no longer thinking about the next thing. And especially if you're a beginner, like you're in learning mode, you code something up. Then you're like, I want to see if this works. I have no idea if I did this right. You try to go do it, and it's like, well, I could, check TikTok for a bit. And it's like like you're constantly being derailed from learning, which is obviously not the greatest thing. And even if you aren't learning and you are experienced, it's still not the greatest thing, because you're constantly being derailed again. Like your thought process goes from, instead of it just being like, code, then check, then code, then check, it's more like code, a little bit of TikTok, then check, code, a little bit of TikTok, then check. And what did you just watch on TikTok? I mean, did you see something that pissed you off politically, or did you see something that was upsetting in the news? Did something bad happen? our phones are great and everything, but they do bring with them the baggage of whatever is on them. It doesn't even have to be TikTok. It could be somebody messaging you. You have your phone on silent, but now you've intentionally went to reach for it. Now someone's annoyed you. So now are you really learning at the same quality and speed as you were when you were just like working away and like, kind of in almost really a deep work? Like we talk about deep work all the time on the show. Is that really deep work if you have a bit of TikTok in between? Like,
No, it's not. It's not. And like, again, there's ways around it. And people, I've seen developers become better at their first take because of it. So again, when you're forced to wait 10 minutes between build times and seeing it appear on the device, the options are you either continue to iterate and forever, or you become better at your first pass. And so like there's some argument there to say that like, okay, maybe it's good to have that little bit of friction to really think about the code before you get it. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to iterate. Even if you have a better first take, sure, you might have skipped a few iterations. You're still going to have to do it. So again, it's just not conducive of the ability to become a better developer. The faster you can iterate, the faster you can fail. And this is the important thing too. Better developer experience allows you to fail easier. Okay, let me explain that. Like, let me break that down. The harder it is for you to, for instance, roll back something when you've deployed it, the more rigid the process needs to be for you to deploy something. And that means that every pipeline, everything that you do has to be perfect, has to be checked 15 times. And again, delayed a pretty significant amount of time, because if it takes you an hour to 2 hours to revert something, or you're impossible to revert, that is a completely different experience than if you can revert instantaneously. Okay. So if you can deploy something and revert instantaneously, that means that, okay, like you still have to pass all the QA checks. Sure. You still have to, check your stuff, but what you don't have to do is have 10 different people QA it. What you don't have to do is sit there sweating and hoping that everything goes okay with the build process, because a random situation can happen. Like one API could be down during the build process, which will break the build, and then it can be corrupted when it's actually reached the production site. Like right now, as we're recording this episode, NPM is down. Okay, that means that the build's probably going to fail. And if you have a situation where your building will take down your site, I've seen that happen. Don't tell me that doesn't happen. Building a website, building some stuff can take down websites if you don't do the correct developer experience pipeline. If you have that situation happen, you're SOL, right? You have no way to revert. You've now taken down your site because NPM is down, and that's required for the build process. It's a whole other episode that we can have, by the way. Having one thing take down the entire web development build process is not a great thing. But regardless, you need to have other things outside that can allow you to fail. You need to be allowed to fail and then revert quickly to be able to, again, iterate quickly and figure out that rhythm that's how you're going to figure out how to become a better developer. You need to fail a million times. You need to write bad code until you can write good code.
What's crazy is like this actually happens with like absolute beginners where they're just coding in HTML and CSS or something, and they're scared to do a big change because they're changing a bunch of their code. And I mean, all they really have to do is like comment at what they've done or the section that they're changing and then do it again. But like they're the beginners, so they don't know that they can just like comment, you know what I mean? Like comment out, write out the new part. And if something's messed up, you just delete the new part and then delete the comments and then delete the comment notation. And then the old site will come back. Something as simple as that, like in the learning process, like that happens. And so you can only almost imagine, or just like what you're saying, it's like you can imagine like how rigid things would become if the stakes are so much higher than that learning. But that does happen when learning. I mean, heck, like I'll like add some JavaScript to like a Webflow page, and I mean, I back that thing up. Like if I get something working and it was kind of complex and like whatever, I back that thing up because I know that if someone asks for a change, I can go in and change it. If something's messed up, I could just Control A, copy the backup, Control V to paste it, put it back up. And I know I can revert, but like a lot of people obviously beginners, like that wouldn't be second nature to them. And that'll hurt them. Like that'll hurt them big time.
That's exactly it. Like it's just the nature of the beast. Like I can't remember, Matt, do you remember how long it took for us to go from coding a microcontroller to it being able to be able to test it. It wasn't super long, but it was a friction point. I remember that.
Well, we did two. We had what was called a butterfly, which was like an all-inclusive little device with like a screen and like a little like joystick thing or a button or something. And that thing was more simple and more old school, and that thing took a while. I want to say, I mean, it's been like 10 years, but like I want to say that thing took a while to upload. So basically, it would be like you'd like code it up on the computer, and then you connect it via USB, and it would like ship it via like an IDE. The IDE would talk to the device, and then it would like fire it across. It got better as we went on, which is good. We also had a teacher that came in that was a bit more modern because he worked in the actual industry. And so he like recommended like a hardware change, and that helped a lot. But it's not instant. Like I want to say that butterfly took a while. Like I don't know if we were doing something wrong or whatever, but I want to say 5 minutes. That might be way too long though.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it felt like 5 minutes. It might have been faster, but it definitely felt like 5 minutes every time. And that was like one of our first forays into coding, right? Like we had a little bit before that and stuff like that, but that was our first like real, like, okay, we're actually coding here. That was definitely a turnoff.
Yeah, it sucked.
Like for me, like I was definitely like, I don't know if I want to do this because it's kind of annoying. Like this, like I don't know what I'm doing, first of all. And every time I do something, I have to wait 5 minutes for it to do any, like for me to even test it. And I don't know if it's going to work. So I feel like you need to have that instantaneous feedback. That is a requirement, at least for some people, and probably myself included, where I need to be able to screw around. I need to be able to see what I did wrong quickly so I can solve it and solve it again and solve it again. And again, that might be different for other people. Some people might have more patience, and that's probably what is the case with a lot of developers, especially people starting out a long time ago because they had no choice. But like for me, I just need that immediate response time. And that's why I've always, I think since I started coding, tried to find the better path in developer experience. Like I started using Vite. It might have been like alpha or something like that. Like as soon as I knew that there was a bundler that was faster than Webpack, I was like, I'm using that because Webpack is too slow. Even though Webpack was already significantly faster than the one before. Like I'll go to the fastest thing.
Of course,
now,
yeah.
to a certain degree. Yeah, I'll go to the fastest thing to a certain degree. Like once it's around 1 second, you're probably not going to impress me with 0.5 second times. Like it's just not going to matter at that point. But going from like 2 minutes to a minute, or going from 2 minutes to like 30 seconds, that's a big improvement. Or 2 minutes to like 10 seconds, which was what Vite was. Like Vite allowed apps to compile that much quicker. It was like a 10x improvement. So there's a lot you can do to make your developer experience better. And you really, again, need to focus on it to actually do it, because no one is going to give you the time to do it out of the generosity of their heart. And by no one, I mean like product managers, like, engineering managers. Usually you'll need to fight for it. And the way to do it is know what tools or know what you want to do to make it better, right? Like say like, hey, I want to change our hosting provider to something like we don't have the expertise to manage it ourselves. I want to change it to something that's managed for us. Maybe we change it to Vercel. And that might be a controversial take to some people. Like I've heard a lot of Vercel bashing recently, and I understand it to a certain degree. But if you don't have the self-hosting expertise, it is the way to increase your throughput by a lot, because you have an entire part of the developer experience pipeline, which is continuous integration, which is like, checking to see if you have a change in your Git and automatically building something, right? And putting it on production or staging environments. You have QA testing environments. You have the entire environment variable management piece is managed for you. You have auto scaling managed for you. You have a lot of security. The firewall there is great. It offers a bunch. Same with Netlify, right? Like they offer a bunch of things compacted together that, yes, you can do on your own, but you need the expertise to do them. Like you can't do it unless you have a developer operations team. And I keep trying to reiterate this to people, and some people don't understand me and some people do. But like when you're choosing to go with one of these providers that help you with developer experience, you're not doing it because, oh, they're better at everything. That's not the case. Self-hosted can be way better at many things and can be cheaper. You're doing it because you don't have the expertise in-house to manage that system as well as they do. So you're paying them like you would pay a developer experience engineer, right? Like a DevOps engineer, right? Like that's the mentality. They're cheaper than that for the most part until you get to a certain traffic threshold. And that's why they're doing so well, is because there's like this really cool, really good zone that they're in where like you can grow with them to a certain degree until you can afford an entire team to manage that for you. And then you're still going to have a good developer experience if you do that well. And you're going to have the self-hosted stuff, which is great too. So like those are the kinds of things you can suggest to your management to be like, hey, I'm spending 50% of my time, 50% of my day managing servers when I could be spending that other 50% literally coding more features and getting us to whatever milestone we need to get get whatever profit we need to get to. When you talk to a manager like that about developer experience, they're much more interested in helping you plan that out and allowing you the time to migrate over to it, to build it, to give you the money to do it and stuff like that. You need to speak their language. Developer experience has to be talked about in a way that is saving the company money, because it 1000% is going to save the company money, right? Like there's many other ways you can increase it. Again, I talked about Vite. If you're still using an older version of React on Webpack, switching to the Vite version, that's an easy sell as well. Being like, hey, listen, I press save on my computer and it takes me a minute before I can see my changes. If we do this migration, it's going to take us a few weeks or a month or whatever. But what's going to happen is I'm going to hit save on my editor and it's going to be instantaneously, like, 2 to 5 seconds in the browser, maybe even less. So we're saving potentially like an hour a day.
Well, there's something,
the entire development team.
Like there's something there too, where like going back to our college days, we had that butterfly, and then we moved on to what they call a dragon. So like the dragon was, I think it was an AVR product. Don't quote me on that. But you basically could plug in a compatible microcontroller into the back, so that had a slot, and you could put things in there. The problem with this device, though, is because it was generic, it was better than the butterfly, as in it was more powerful. But the problem is that it was generic across so many different microcontrollers, you had to select the right one, and you could actually misselect. Like it wasn't smart enough to be like, yeah, you're using this microcontroller. So, and then there was also issues with the IDE. I don't know if you remember this, Mike, where again, faster than the butterfly, but risky. You would click like build, and there was just like a chance it would just like fail and corrupt the dragon. And like when I say dragon, it's like a board, like a PCB with like a slot on the back.
Oh, it's a real dragon.
It's a real fire-breathing dragon with a slot on the back, apparently.
With a slot in the back with the USB port, yeah.
But my whole point is like, I mean, we had that a couple times where we would plug in, just press the program, and it would be like, obviously I could potentially corrupt the microcontroller, but which is a cheaper thing, but it's just like, oh, like the driver or whatever doesn't see the dragon anymore, so you can try this like recovery process, and if like the recovery process doesn't work, then that's it, like your dragon's done. And it's like, well, like that's pretty stupid, like as a training tool. But then when we went on again to like the third and final more modern thing, we used, I believe it was called the trainer board or tester board or whatever, and that thing was soldered in. And it was like this, like the idea was that you are going to be using this microcontroller, which is soldered in. There's like LEDs on this thing. There's a couple of plugs if you want to plug in something like a speaker or whatever. I think there might have been a beeper, like a very, very rudimentary speaker or a beeper there. Just a couple of like things. So it's like, this is meant for if you're training literally, or if you are doing tests where you're like, I want to see if this microcontroller can like drive these LEDs. You could like connect like another PCB or connect like whatever those trainer board things were. I don't know, what the heck were those things called, Mike? Those like white rectangular things where we used to breadboards. You would connect a breadboard up, and it's like that is a much better process because like the driver for Windows and for the IDE or whatever it was obviously specialized for that thing. It was a more powerful microcontroller, and obviously the software knew we were using that trainer board. So it was much more reliable. In fact, I don't even recall anyone in the class having a corrupt trainer board. But I know of several instances where people had a corrupt trainer board. And that's a developer experience thing where it's like and it's iterative as well, where the butterfly was slow and old school. The dragon was a step up where it's like, hey, it's modular and it's generic and blah, 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 but it had all these issues. And then it's like, all right, let's maybe go more proprietary, but it's faster. It's this and it's that. And it's a much better developer experience. And that's saving money in the fact that the students aren't buying multiple parts, but it's also saving time because the classes are going quicker and it's a freaking paid college. So time is money.
Absolutely. And yeah, again, you have to keep reiterating the fact that time is money. And there's different ways you can pitch developer experience, right? Like it could be something like, hey, we've been on this Angular 1 for all this time. We want to upgrade to React. That's a developer experience upgrade, right? Like, and this is where you have to start thinking in different ways where you're like, it's a tough sell a lot of times, right? Like if Angular 1 is still working just fine, there's really not a lot of reason to switch to React unless you can find that 10x improvement in your developer experience, right? Like if the app is working well, fairly, then okay, it's tough. Like, okay, you maybe double the speed of an app. Okay, who cares? It's not a big deal for a lot of users to wait a little bit more, right? Like that's the reality. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It doesn't matter. But if you could be like, hey, we could add a new feature. If we upgrade to React, we can add a new feature in half the amount of time that we have right now. That's a big bonus. That's a big plus. And any, product manager, any engineering manager worth of salt is going to accept that sacrifice of however many months it's going to take to get there to be able to have that throughput increase moving forward, right? Now you have to sell it. It's not easy. It's not something you could just bring up in a meeting and be like, hey, I want to get to React. No one's going to take you seriously. No one gives a crap. They're working on the thing. You have to learn how to sell that to the team in a way that is first of all, true, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're like, hey, I want to update from Vue to React for whatever reason. And it's just like, you're not going to see that much of an increase, right? Like it's going to be the same thing. But if it's a significant upgrade, then you sell it and hopefully your logic will come into play and they'll let you do it. And hopefully that will make you have a better developer experience. That's the thing. Like at the end of the day, you're trying to make your life easier. You're trying to make everyone else's lives easier. That's the whole point of this developer experience discussion. I'm just saying, I think people handle it incorrectly a lot of times when they just assume that people care about their developer experience, or on the other side, they don't even think about their own. They don't even think about, hey, like, you can make your life better, by adding these tools, by trying different things, by, writing a script that automates a bunch of your tasks, right? Like people just don't think about that. They're just like, okay, well, like I just accepted this 20 to 30 minute build process. I'm good to go. Right. Like I have a good example of that to a certain degree right now. Another story to tell. This is a more recent one where probably a couple months ago, as our apps became more and more complicated, interconnected with each other, it became really difficult to set up staging environments for the apps. So like when we build a feature and you want it QA'd, because the apps, there was multiple apps and they were interconnected, we would have to set up like each app, and then we'd have to set up the connections between each app for every single staging environment or for every single feature that we're trying to test. And that became really difficult. Like it was literally, the first time I did it manually, it was like an hour process. Now I got faster at it manually, but it still was like 30 minutes. And we would have to do this weekly at that point. So it was like an hour, 30 minutes to an hour of my life or other developers' lives on the team on a weekly basis. And you could still make mistakes and you have to go back and like fix it. It was just a big pain in the ass. And that was definitely a developer experience issue. So I sat down, looked at the problem, and I wrote a script that will essentially do everything that I was doing manually, step by step. Had to connect to like the Vercel API, had to connect to the PlanetScale API, had to connect to this Cloudflare API, had to connect to like 15 different APIs. It was a pain in the ass to write. I'm not going to lie. But at the end of the day, it took that process that was a 30-minute process down to about a minute to 2 minutes, unless we have to do like a production backup, which takes a little bit longer, but it's all automated. And so like you'll just kick it off in like 10 minutes, you come back, it's done. It's those kinds of things that you want to keep an eye out for. If you can automate certain parts of the developer experience that aren't instinctively obvious to automate, like a lot of times you'll just accept doing stuff manually, and sometimes it's fine if you only do it once or twice. But as soon as you start seeing yourself redoing things over and over again, you start seeing the team like around you redoing things. That's a good indicator to be like, is there any way I can speed this up? Is there any way I can make this better, right? And again, you pitch it to the product manager, you pitch it to whoever you need to pitch it to as a way to save money, as a way to save time, which is money, as a way to make people's lives easier. The other thing it saves, I want to say too, is like money and time are one thing, and those are the most important things to pitch. But sanity and like lower chance of burnout is another one. For me personally, if I have a system that's very rigid and slow and tough to work with, I burn out much quicker. Because again, I can't do my fast iterative process that I usually do. And therefore I'm stuck just in this grind of like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to wait. I'm going to do this. I just hate that process. So that burns me out, like flat out. So the faster I can make that process, the less chance I'm going to go crazy and the more chance I can continue to, have a good output for the team. And that's another part of the discussion. That's another thing you could talk about if you have nothing else to talk about in why you want to do this. Because if the management is worth their salt, they'll take that into consideration. A lot of developers burn out. Like burnout is a very serious problem in the web development or like development space in general, because a lot of times we don't catch ourselves when we realize that we've been just staring at a computer screen for 12 hours a day for 3 months in a row, and that becomes an issue, especially when we're doing things we hate. And one of the things that I know a lot of people hate is doing stupid repetitive tasks that could be automated.
Especially when the environment is fast paced as well. Because I mean, there's nothing worse than being like, man, this is a fast paced environment. I got my work done really, really fast, but really I didn't because I have this stupid like repeat task. And you're I mean, at least my brain will like almost compartmentalize that thing, where I see that as its own little process where I think of, hey, I have my daily work or my monthly work or whatever the project is, and then I have this thing. Like this annoying task. And like one of the things, for example, like as running an agency is backups. I mean, like going in and like taking backups and like making sure it did the backup right, and then like downloading the backup and storing it somewhere. I mean, it's fine if I'm doing like a major update on something I haven't touched in a while, but in general, it's like I'll throw somebody on something that does an automated backup, because that way, if they call out of the blue and it's like everything's gone to hell, it's like, well, it's no big deal because I got this backup already. I don't have to worry about like, well, like, I'm supposed to do daily backups, but I was busy that day, so I missed that backup and stuff like that. It's like backups are just part of the job, and I understand I'll sometimes have to do them manually, but in general, it's like for longstanding clients, for longstanding hosted clients, that those backups are done automatically. It's something that I would not want to do all the time because it's annoying.
That totally makes sense. Exactly. Like, why would you want to keep doing that? And I get it. Like, you're just there for the job and you're just like, whatever, it's part of the day. But if it's, especially for people that it actually bothers, like, do something about it. Find a way to put some time on the calendar for you to be able to do something about it. And I think that's the hardest part too. And again, that's why I want to reiterate how you could do that with selling it time and money thing. And yeah, like, I don't know, for me, this has been, developer experience has kind of been a passion for a long time because it's such a pain point for me. And like, I've had so many bad experiences with it. Like, I've come into companies and looked at their processes and been like, how do you work every day? How do you like sit down on your computer and like actually get stuff done? Because I would be battling with your processes, like with your pipelines, with your workflows for most of my day. And they're like, yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, it's like almost it's like 10% development and 90% bureaucracy, which is, I mean, even digital bureaucracy, if you will.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. And they're just like, yeah, that's how we work. What's wrong with that? And I'm just like, what do you mean? Like you can't, how do you develop? They're like, well, we do stuff in between, like in between the rigmarole of having to set up the dev server and stop it, start it 15 times until it works. I've come in and I've set up the dev server and I'm like, oh, it's crashing. They're like, oh yeah, it does that.
Oh, fantastic.
Like, what do you mean? Like, they're like, you just have to stop and start it like 15 times and it'll stop. Well, that's an exaggeration, but still, like, it's pretty much around there. And I'm like, well, but like, has anyone looked into it? Like, no, we don't have time for that.
It's like you're still trying to be like an agile environment, but you have this like boat anchor dragging you down, and it's like, hey guys, like, we're trying to be an agile environment. Like, let's maybe do something about this.
And people are afraid to mention it in like the product meetings and stuff like that. They're like, how long is this feature going to take? Because it's going to be like, oh, it's like 3 days or 4 days. And the main reason is because I actually have to, stop and start my server 15 times before I can even start working on it. And then I have to stop and start it again when I save it. Like, mention that. Be like, hey, we have an issue with our pipeline. We need time to fix it. Like, that's what you should be saying. Like, it's not that complicated to say it. And they're afraid to say that because they think that they're doing a bad job at maintaining that pipeline, and therefore it's on them and they can get fired. Like, I get it from that. I get it. Like, I understand that from that perspective. But like, if you don't say it, it's just going to get worse. And like, people are going to start questioning the times that it takes you to complete features. Like, it's just going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
A new developer is going to come on the team and be like, what is this? Like, what is going on here? And that happens. Like, it's crazy.
Well, I mean, it's almost like the same thing that we experience sometimes where it's like, we're a 2-man team, and sometimes people will be like, well, what's going on? Like a client will be like, what the heck's going on here? And you just have to explain to them like, hey, I know, like you have come to a business, but it's a 2-man business. And usually it's like, oh, okay, kind of thing, because they don't realize, like, they just think there's like a team behind it. And it's like, no, like, there's kind of time, again, that time is money thing. But could you imagine if we, as a 2-man team, also had like a huge boat anchor where we had to like constantly do this like weird, I don't know, bureaucratic or digitally bureaucratic procedure? It would be crazy. Like, that'd be a crazy thing for us to add, where it's just like, okay, every single time we do a work order, we have to fill out this like 30,000 step thing just to like make sure we have it in our books. And it's like, what? Like, why? It's not legally required. It's not, the government hasn't asked us to do it or anything like that. It's just for, I guess, our own records. And I mean, that happens in larger businesses where like you get bogged down, obviously, technically, or in, I guess, paperwork wise, you'll get bogged down and stuff like that. And I mean, sometimes it's hard to change. Like, sometimes it's a difficult thing to change, because especially in a larger business, you might say, hey, like, there's an issue here, there's an issue there, like, we need to change this. It'll be like, well, we have to contact, team A, and team A, like, they're pretty busy, so we're not really supposed to contact them. And so things get like buried. But like, as Mike said earlier in the episode, by presenting yourself in a way where it's like, hey guys, like, we're spending a lot of money messing around. Like, if we're, if we're all paid hourly and we're spending an hour a week doing this, it's like, that's $100 an hour. Let's just say, for the sake of simplicity, it's $100 an hour per staffer per week. Do you guys want to save a few grand? Do you guys want to save a few hundred? Or do you guys not want to save a few hundred? Then it kind of gets people thinking, oh yeah, like, this would be good, because then I could like look good at the end of the year with the budget and blah, 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 all the office bureaucracy. But I mean, it happens. Or in a startup, it'd be like, yeah, let's save the money because we need the money. Like, small business, all the rest of it, like, they need the money. So I mean, and like, we mentioned this on the show too, Mike, but like, one of our first projects just for ourselves was like a stock photo website. And like, we made the editing experience like pretty bad, because it was like, oh, it's just us, like, don't worry about it. And the CMS was just like a total pain to log in and like set things up and whatever. And the final result was nice. Like, the final result worked, and it worked, and whatever, that was all great. But just the initial like, or not the initial, the hurdle, I really should say, the hurdle of like logging in and trying to upload these photos and like keep them all in one specific like post. And, oh, is this a single photo? Is it not? Do we want to put these in the preview? Do we not? Is this a featured thing, or is it not? Is it a blog post as well, or is it not? Sounds really easy, but our CMS UX was so bad that, I mean, I guess this isn't really dev experience, but we kept saying like, oh, we're devs, it's fine. Like, we can just have a bad experience. We can just have a bad experience. We can just have a bad experience. But unfortunately, it was so bad that when we stopped uploading to it, it's like the site was actually doing okay, but it was just sort of like, we actually went out and took all these photos, all these stock photos, and like did the hard part where it's like, drive to these locations, do the hard thing, sometimes go hiking in the woods to grab these photos. And then it felt like the hard part was like, oh my God, like, I have to go through this stupid process where I gotta like compress all this stuff, move it around, do this and that. And it's like, that ended up killing the site. Like, not completely, but largely. And that's one of the reasons why, when I make CMS for clients now, when I make CMS like templates or layouts or whatever, when I go and do that, I do that with like UX in mind, where I'm like, I don't want the user to be able to make really any mistake other than a content one. Like, if it's a typo, that's on them. But I don't want them to be, oh, this image field is not required, and then they don't do it, and then the site looks stupid because there's no image there. It's like, okay, like, part of the UX is make sure that's required. Make sure it's required across all of them. Make sure that the sizing is okay, or that it's background, cover, so that it doesn't take up this little tiny thing. And sure, they may upload the wrong resolution or something like that, but I can even limit that with many CMS, right? Type of thing. So it's like the developer experience, but really the website editing experience. Because if we think about web development, I mean, web development is also the content development. I mean, we can build the greatest templates in the world of like, this is what our blog post will look like with all dummy content. This is what our homepage will look like with all dummy content. But the content part's very, very important. And if you don't allow either yourself or someone in the company or the client to be able to actually edit the content with a good UX, with a good developer, or a good content editor experience, I mean, it's going to become cumbersome. They're going to fall behind. It's not going to look good. And then that website's likely going to be replaced. I mean, so many of our early websites have been replaced because people are like, where's the editor? And I'm like, we didn't do editor. This is old now, but it's like, we just did HTML and CSS. And they're like, what is that? So I show it to them knowing that they're not going to learn code. Like, I'm just showing them code. And then they're like, well, I'm out, I'm out of here kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, like I get it. But again, those were our first experiences and a number of years ago now.
Yeah. Bad developer experience has consequences.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Like, I mean, same with bad UX, obviously, but I think a developer experience is kind of put to the side a little bit, where the reality is like, if you want a good product team, if you want a good engineering team, it should be top of mind.
Yeah.
Literally top of mind, because the better you can make it, again, reiterating, people need to be able to fail quickly, learn quickly, they'll be able to develop quickly. They need to get shit out of their way so that they can actually sit down and write code. That's what people need. That's what developers need. Anything that prevents that or stops that or slows that down, if it can be adjusted, should be scheduled, should be, put into the proper cycles, and you should continually fix it. This is not something you do once and then stop forever. Developer experience constantly evolves. New tools come out. Again, the Webpack to V thing, it was a really big jump. That made a lot of sense for people to do. That stuff is still happening, right? Like, that stuff is still getting better. So you need to keep your eye on it and continually look for ways to improve, to make it easier. Again, remove obstacles for yourself and whatever developers are working around you to build better products, right? Or to learn better.
What's interesting, Mike, is that you were saying that. I'm really surprised the term, or the phrase, I guess, technical debt has not come up in this episode, because really some of this stuff is technical debt related. Like, it's really technical debt related, where people will just sort of like, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we have too many images, or they're too big, or they're not being compressed properly, or not being resized properly. But yeah, it's okay. And then it becomes this huge problem where it's like, man, our posting bill is out to lunch. What's happening? It's like, oh, well, all our images are 71% too large. It's like 71%. Like, maybe for the first 5 images, it was fine, for the first build, and then we went in and we fixed it. But for the first, 71 images, like, what's going on here? And so I do think that, I mean, maybe we'll link it. I think we have a few technical debt episodes. They're maybe a bit older at this point, so they might be a little bit different format. But if I remember, I'll include those in the show notes if you want to listen to those, because like technical debt is an absolutely huge part of the developer experience in general, whether it's during the development or honestly just during the maintenance and upkeep of a website.
It's absolutely the thing that kind of baffles me sometimes, is the technical debt aspect of everything. We have also in our team a technical debt board, and just, you have, like, it's a fight. It's always a fight to prioritize it, right? Like, it's always a fight. And it makes sense because, again, a lot of times it's not a direct path to income. But like, the longer you have that board, the longer you don't act on those things, the worse it's going to get. It needs to be a constant thing. Like, right now, what I'm trying to implement is, like, every cycle we have 10 to 20% dedicated to technical debt. That'll kill it off. Like, that'll slowly build enough tasks on the board to actually get some meaningful progress on the technical debt. It won't be super fast. Sometimes you're going to have to spend more time on it. So you're going to have to plan like a month where you have maybe 50-50. And so like, you can have to really get some chunks down. But like, a lot of times, if you just have 10% on the board every cycle, you're going to get some work done, and it's going to make your developers' lives easier. It's going to make product better. I think that's really it. Like, that's the kind of like what I wanted to say about developer experience in this episode. I just have a lot of frustrations with it still. I think it's gotten exponentially better over the last few years, which is awesome. But yeah, just really want to get people to focus on it.
Yeah, and I think what I've said, is kind of, that's everything for me, kind of thing. Like, as a conclusion, I think that just like making sure that it's basically like your work environment. Really, like, a lot of the developer experience stuff is going to be messy. And like, could you imagine being in like an office that's like a physical total disaster of a mess? You know what I mean? It's the same reason why even in dirty environments like a shop, they constantly clean the shop, they're constantly sweeping and things like that. It's basically the same thing. Like, imagine just having, a bunch of technical debt, a bunch of mess, a bunch of like little things where it's like, oh, like, this is a CI pipeline, but you make sure to like turn that server off and on 4 times, like Mike said first. And, just weird little things like that. And it's like, man, this is like starting to become a mess. and now I'm like existing in the mess and I'm not having the greatest time. So developer experience totally is like a huge thing. And again, I'll link if I remember some of the technical debt episodes we've had, or the main one, or whatever it is. We've done a lot of episodes, so I can't remember, but I'll try to link that if you're interested in learning more about specifically technical debt stuff. But I think that's it. I think that concludes this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Remember that we are on that Patreon. If you want to support episodes like this, that's patreon.com/HTML, all the things. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons: Tim from the Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com, Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com, Garrett Segal, Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com, Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se, Syntaxify from the HTML All the Things Discord server, and Stacy Mosteler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And remember that we also have that Scrimba link. If you're interested in learning how to code with their interactive media player code editor, go ahead and take a couple of their courses. You can do so with a discount up to 20% off using our affiliate link, scrimba.com/links/HTML all the things. And remember, all the details for that will be on htmlallthethings.com in the show notes. And last but not least, we'd like to give a shout out to Michael LaRocca, a contributing author on HTML All the Things. Michael is the author of Self-Taught, the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. Feel free to leave a comment or a review on the platform that you are listening to this on, and this outro will sign us off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings. And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media. On Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things. And on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.